Ladies and gentlemen, this episode of Fall Out of Friday is brought to you by a new partner of mine. Now, I want to be very clear. If anybody ever thinks at any time that I am giving investment advice, you need to check yourself. Because I, as everybody knows who listens to the podcast, am a moron. And if I'm actually being totally transparent, I don't do well when it comes to investing. I haven't tried a bunch of it, but I haven't done well. Now, I'm going to move on here. Military finance. If you're listening to this and you're interested in the cryptocurrency world, I'm going to provide for you some information about an organization that was designed, made by veterans, for other veterans. My understanding of the cryptocurrency world is that it is the absolute Wild West. You got people out there throwing $50 in a variety of different directions, hoping they're going to become an overnight billionaire so they can fly a helicopter to go get their Starbucks coffee in the morning. And here's what I'll tell you. If that's what you want to do, then you go do that. I have no problem whatsoever people spending their time, energy, effort, and money in whatever direction that they want to. Just understand that your choices come with consequences. If you're into the crypto world, that's great. I know almost nothing about it. I'm trying to learn, and I'm actually going to be talking about my journey along the way. However, my involvement with military finance has nothing to do with people's ability to make money, even though I hope everybody makes as much money as they possibly can. It has to do with giving back to a community that is near and dear to my heart, the veteran community. If you're interested in the crypto world, you have more choices than I care to explain or count. And like I said before, go pursue those if you want to. But if you're looking for an option that allows you to pursue your helicopter as you pick up your caramel macchiato, whatever it may be, in said helicopter and fly back to your mansion, and you also want to give back to the veteran community, you have an option. The giving world when it comes to the veteran community is a literal minefield. And when military finance approached me and asked me to come on board and help them allocate the dollars that they have set aside through the creation of the crypto and the transactions, and actually make sure it got into the hands and into the families and the communities where it would have the most impact, that is why I said yes. Again, I don't know shit, anything, when it comes to investments. Don't ever look at me as somebody trying to give you that advice. But I really hope that I can help allocate resources to communities and individuals that truly need it. So, if what I'm talking about sounds interesting, if pursuing your own goals in the financial world, but also giving back seamlessly, painlessly, and cost-free to you as an individual sound good, what I recommend is you go to military finance, military.finance, or click on the link in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode of Fall Out of Friday is brought to you by longtime sponsor Onnit. Go to onnit.com/hot. But don't do so until you have some time, because there's a lot of offerings. They have supplements, they have nutrition, fitness, apparel, content from the written word, spoken word, visual word, which I suppose would be video, and a variety of other things. You'll know you're at the right place because the podcast artwork is front and center, and you can receive up to 10% off when you check out. But this is where you should be going if you're interested in optimizing your performance, perhaps your recovery, perhaps your rest. As I always say, focus on the big things that you can control first before you start digging into the micro. So get your rest dialed in, your sleep. Get your macronutrients dialed in with your nutrition. Get your recovery and training dialed in. And then when you're ready to take it to the next level, onnit.com/hot. On the landing page, there's Alpha Brain, their Power Food Active, some fitness equipment, and the Total Gut Health. Things that I use, not every day, but at least every week. So if you're looking to optimize health, performance, longevity, onnit.com/hot. And that is it on the business side of the house today. Fall Out of Friday, Q&A with my buddy Nelson Grant. Away we go.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
I try to pick different topics. I feel like this is the 60th iteration of this. I feel like there might be some repeat, but I do my best. The first one's on parenting. You and I are both parents, so not that we have the answers to parenting. I'm going to put that disclosure out. Here we go. My wife and I are parents to an 8-year-old daughter who is about to enter 3rd grade. Between my wife's income and mine, we make pretty good money. This has provided us the opportunity to buy pretty much whatever we want, take annual vacations to Hawaii, etc. The unintended consequences with this, however, is that our daughter is starting to become spoiled. My wife and I fully admit this is our fault, and don't believe this is our daughter's fault, as she was born into this environment we've created and doesn't know anything different. My question is, what would you suggest regarding a path forward as it pertains to instilling grit in our daughter as she continues to grow, as well as avoid any potential brattiness? I'm happy to report we don't give in every time she wants an item or a toy. We've even discussed her doing some volunteer work as she gets a bit older just to try and keep her humble. What else would you suggest with regards to parenting that may help in this regard? We'd still like to go on family vacations and whatnot, but don't want to create a brat with thin skin along the way. We're starting to see warning signs, which is why I'm asking. Any advice is appreciated. It's a tough one. I actually know a few people who I'll just say they're independently wealthy and they do have kids. And this one, I think if you're not cautious, you could set kids up for some gnarliness in the future. I was getting on a commercial, let me see here. I think it was a Southwest flight. I was behind a family. A very young little boy got on and turned his head to the left and said, "Mommy, where's the leather seats that we normally sit in?" I was like, oh, damn. Welcome to the bus with the rest of us, sucker.
That's awesome. Man.
What do you think, man? Raising kids when money, which for I think a lot of people, they get into that cycle of life where it becomes the end-all be-all rat race. And I've come to a place in my life where it's certainly important, but it's no longer the most valuable asset that I have. Mm-hmm. And I have the ability that I could buy my kids some things, but as you know, my oldest, Riley, he's working. He's managing his own cash. And that's where I would probably begin my answer with this, but I'm going to let you have it. Mr.
All right.
Grant.
So
parenting expert.
Only child?
Only child, it seems. 8-year-old daughter.
Right there with him.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Layla, my daughter, is 8
Yep.
and going into 3rd grade.
Yearly vacations to Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. We tend to go out to the lake overnight, and do localized vacations, but
that's actually my definition of wealth, though, is being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
And we do some trips and stuff like that. But man, it's really good question. I was trying to think through a bunch of things when you were reading that off. So I think it's important for your daughter, and she, knowing my daughter, she's too young to really comprehend hard work and what it takes. But my daughter sees when I'm not there, night shift right now.
Yeah.
I can't go to the beach with her today. So she knows there's sacrifices to be made. It's 150 degrees, it feels like, here in Montana this week. And everybody's at the beach, but hey, got to work night shift. You got to grind. And also my response is positive. It's hey, this is part for the family. But I think it's really important. So this guy that's writing in, he has done some things to sacrifice to be where he's at. And unless he's just trust fund and all that, which
he woke up with checking account.
And that happens. And there's some good people that have that luxury. But at some point there was some sweat that happened. And it's important for those kids to see where that came from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And my daughter, I feel like, is super blessed as well and lucky and fortunate. I mean, she doesn't really want for anything. She's got new clothes. She's involved in a lot of sports. But it's important, for example, jiu-jitsu. It always comes back there with us. But
maybe with you.
Yeah. No, you talk about it a lot too. No, locally here. So my daughter's in jiu-jitsu, and it's not her favorite activity. She would rather, play soccer or
do anything but jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, right now, which is weird because I have buddies that their daughters love it, and they will sacrifice birthday parties to be at jiu-jitsu. So my daughter just doesn't have that same desire. However, when she's there, she loves it. Our community is awesome with that. But I have to make her go to jiu-jitsu, and not make her. when I pick her up from school during the school year, it's hey, I got your jiu-jitsu gear here. We're going to and she knows in the morning when we leave. But so there's that. That's something she doesn't necessarily want to do, but I'm, impressing that onto her.
Yeah.
And I think that's important until a certain age. when she's old enough to be like, hey, listen, this is not something I want to do, then we'll have that conversation. I don't know, age-wise, maybe 14 or something like that. But I think you and Trav and Keesa were talking about that at once. But that's a little sidebar. But I think it's important for them to do things that are out of their comfort zone that teaches them how to sweat a little bit. And
the humility will come from that too.
Yeah, and not just, I want to play drums this week, and here's a drum set, and I want to play trumpet the next week. Oh, here's a trumpet.
I want to ride horses. Here's a pony.
Yep. And my daughter's in that zone right now. She wants to ride horses. All her friends are doing it. So she's in horse camps a bunch this summer.
Do you find that your daughter is bratty at times?
Well,
and I ask that because this person describing brattiness, also with an 8-year-old, that might just be the phase you're into.
It is.
So
and we address it when it comes up.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the growth of the age. But as far as vacations, I think those are important as long as she sees the sweat equity that made them get to that point and to be able to enjoy the fruits of that.
Yeah, I look back at my own upbringing. I came from a solidly middle-class family of a mason father working in the trades, and my mom was doing a variety of administrative work. I don't think I ever needed for anything.
Yeah.
But I also was working with my dad every single summer. He was taking taxes out of my paycheck. I would go buy my own school clothes. And I don't know your experience with people who have, I'll call it pretty extravagant wealth. What I've noticed is often the most successful, especially when there's generational wealth that's going to get passed on. The wealth that the parents agree to pass on is a fraction of their overall wealth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it lets the people know, hey, I've got you, ... Like, you're going to have to get yourself for a certain time period. So I don't think there's anything wrong with providing the things that your children want and need. There is a difference between that and then doing things for them. My parents would be like, sweet, you want to do this? Here's how many hours you're going to need to work. And they'd provide me the opportunity to work for it.
Yeah.
Riley, my oldest right now, he wants a car. I'm like, hey, man, cool. So we went and got him a part-time job. But he also wants to go hang with his friends. And I see he's been hitting Starbucks drive-thru quite a bit. And goddamn, he loves these chips called Takis. So he gets, and I'll ask him. I'm like, hey, man, how's that going for the down payment on the car? And he's just like, well, not that good. I'm like, yeah, you're kind of buying stuff for your online video games. And we'll have the conversations about like, hey, man, so you just spent $20 for a micro in-game transaction for your video game. How many hours of that is you working?
Well, he knows he's getting the race truck, 800 horsepower.
It's not 800 horsepower. And he's not getting the race truck.
I know, I'm just
He's
kidding.
Never driven it. So I'm very fortunate. I have an F-150 that I enjoy very much. It's anything but stock. And he doesn't drive it.
Yeah, you met most of my buddies through that truck.
Yes, as long as the police officers know to not pull that truck over for any reason, or if they do an accident, just to let the driver go for excessive speed, we're fine. But it's, he doesn't drive that. He wants to get a car, and I told him, I'll help you with the down payment. But how much do you want to have? He's like, $3,000. I'm like, all right, man, let's talk about $3,000 at 15 an hour minus taxes, and we're gonna have to prioritize. Like, I am not gonna do it for you. I mean, will I take my kids on vacation? Yes, I will. Are there ways, though, that I keep them grounded? Not that I could afford to pay first class for everybody, but even if I could, I wouldn't.
Right.
I would keep them. I would keep their experience as grounded as possible. Could I afford to rent a? Well, it's like an expensive car. I was going to say Lamborghini, but a family of 4 doesn't fit in that, I don't think. Could you rent some like crazy Escalade? Maybe. I couldn't financially do it, but even if I could, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? I would keep them as grounded as possible and show them the value of work. There's just a difference between providing things for your kids that can help out on their day-to-day and then doing things for them. I think that's the line in the sand. And to me, it's very telling when huge amounts of wealth, the parents could pass it all to the kids, and it's like, why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
Why did you only give them a couple $1 million? Not that that's a small amount of money, but in comparison to if your net worth has a B associated with it and your kids are getting a few million, it's like, why? Because you know what happens when things are given to you for free. That's what I would say when it comes to parenting. Have them work for it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, my daughter, when we go into a store, anytime, she's at the age now where shiny things, pink things and packaging. I'm
still at that age too, just so you know.
Yeah. So I'm aware of it and I know it's coming. you know, we like, even if we have to run into the grocery store real quick.
Oh, yeah.
There's like, oh, hey, look at this.
Daddy, what
Yeah.
about this pack of cards?
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to be aware of not always saying no. You know,
Yeah.
we were in the hardware store the other day and she's like, I knew it was coming. She's like, hey, I need some gardening gloves. And she's right. She's outgrown her old garden. So I'm like, yeah, pick them out. So she got these pink, you know, rubber gardening, and she was stoked. And it's like, that also is a balance.
Yeah.
You know, so not always saying no, but being aware of.
And volunteer work, I also think is great.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody ever goes wrong with volunteer work. I think it totally, depending on what type you do, it might shock you back into reality.
Yeah.
A little bit. It can be pretty jarring. At 8, though, that lesson, I don't know if the brain's going to process that particular lesson.
Yeah, maybe as a family.
As a family,
doing
but
like,
it'll have more impact, I would say, in as the tweenagers. I learned that term recently, to teenage years. It's no big deal. I keep up with the vernacular. So hopefully that helped. All right, question 2. Advice on stress management. I need advice from an objective third party regarding a disagreement with my husband. So this has nothing to do with the subject line, apparently. I've always been the breadwinner in my family, and while I don't mind taking on the lion's share of the financial responsibility, it has forced me to take on higher paying jobs with more and more accountability and expectations. So it sounds like this person is climbing the ladder, corporate ladder, and all the things that come with that. Needless to say, I incur a lot of professional stress, which bleeds into my personal life. Very common as well. I generally do not discuss work with my husband because he has shown disinterest in the topic. So I take on the stress quietly. I am currently facing a lot of stress at work and I just can't hide it anymore. I expressed my interest into volunteering to help reinvigorate my perspective, like we're literally just were talking about, because I feel helping others would motivate me and inspire compassion. His response was essentially that I need to clean our house before I consider any outside obligations. I'm not going to lie. I tolerate a lot of chaos at home because I do not have the energy after a long day at work. We have 2 young kids and 4 dogs, so things can be a little hectic. I know it can be more attentive at home, but so could he. To be honest, if I felt more supported with things at home, I would not have minded his clean the house comment. But it seems like he just wants to put all the adult responsibilities on me. I stand by my objective to start volunteering, but how do I get him on board without either one of us harboring resentment? Again, thank you. Damn.
wow. You're letting me shoot this one first.
I mean, I can start. No. I'll start, but I don't know if the writer of this email is going to want to hear this. Your husband's acting like a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line, a relationship has to be 2 parties. He cannot be blind to the input you are having and what you are doing and what it is allowing him to do as part of a family. And if he's not going to respect that and he's not going to engage into that and to value your contribution, he's being a fucking bitch. That's where I would start.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not acceptable. Resentment is a terrible, terrible thing. I dealt with that in my previous relationship. And the thing that I hate about resentment is I feel like it has an increased gravity over normal things. Like a little bit grows and grows and grows and grows, but it's not linear. If it's not addressed, or if they keep doing small things to build on that resentment, it goes from a 1 to a fucking 8 almost overnight. And from my own experience, nothing good came from that. What I should have done and what I tried to do and failed at, and that is on me and not the person I was addressing it with, was make a better case for how I was feeling or articulate it in different terms until either one of 2 things happened. We came to an agreement that things were going to change, or we came to an agreement that they were not, which is kind of what happened because I'm no longer with that person. That was a part of it. Obviously, relationships are really, really complicated, but a good partner should be there to help hold you up when you come back from work and you're stressed out. And the last thing out of somebody's mind, in my opinion, when you say you want to volunteer outside of the house is, well, you should make sure our house is clean first. Yeah. I'd give you the old fucking number 1 salute. Potentially a backhand. I'm not recommending that. You're a law enforcement officer. I don't know where the line is on that. And I'm actually joking. Obviously, don't hit anybody, but that is it's a super fucked up thing to say, in my opinion.
I would break it down on the not wanting to know anything about the career path or the daily events at
that
work.
one came out strung out to me a little bit too, right? They should be there to support you.
Yeah, and maybe, and it could be perspective. This is where maybe some counseling, finding a good neutral person to talk to with both of them. But maybe he does want to hear about it, and they just aren't setting the time up in the evenings or whenever they have the opportunity to discuss it. Or if he doesn't discuss it with him, like, listen, dude, you need to listen to what's going on in my life, and I want to hear what's going on in yours. Because
I'm assuming it's a stay-at-home dad.
Yep.
There's, I mean, shit. I always want to know what my kids are up to. Like, there should be a mutual exchange of information at the end of every day. That's what I think is, obviously doesn't have to be structured, but there should be interest back and forth. That's what a partner is, in my opinion, at least.
And those conversations open up the door for, rabbit trails and, other conversations, and it adds to the bond.
Yeah.
As far as the volunteer work, maybe that's not what they need if they're already loaded down with stress or what she needs. Because if she's so busy at work and wanting to, I get the outlet thing. Maybe do something together.
Yeah.
A hobby, or I don't know. But
I would say, if he doesn't want to get on board, talk to him about it. I would say very openly. If he doesn't want to get on board, I would take the 2 kids and leave his ass at the house.
Yeah.
And as you're leaving, I would say, hey, what's for dinner? We'll be back at this hour.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Fuck you, man.
No, agreed. Yep, agreed. Yeah.
Resentment is terrible. God, it's like cancer, but it just spreads so ridiculously fast. My best advice for not having resentment is incredibly open and honest conversations. And I actually think you nailed it by putting an objective third person in the middle. Mm-hmm. The counseling aspect is huge. It doesn't solve any problems, but I think it can help illuminate areas where work can be done. Because this is one thing I hear from people too. I went and saw a counselor and it didn't do anything. I don't know if you understand how the process works. You can go identify stuff, and then if it's a couples counseling, you got to go work on that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, if the husband hears this, stop being a fucking bitch. Question 3. Ever since I was 16, I've been drinking to the point of total blackout. And it seems there is really a no in-between for me. What's the problem, you may ask? Sounds like a good time, some might say. In fact, not. I am now 27, so damn, 11 years of this, and I find it almost impossible to stop drinking. When I'm drunk, I become the world's biggest asshole, like a gaping asshole. Thank you for that lovely description. I'm constantly destroying relationships with friends and girlfriends. About a year ago, I started dating an incredible girl who loves to do all the same things as me, like skydiving, hiking, and rock climbing. The problem is today we found ourselves on the couch having the same conversation I've had with many other past girlfriends. She is considering leaving because I can't get my drinking under control. Part of the reason I find it so hard to stop drinking is because of my social circles. I'm a full-time firefighter, a former Marine, a skydiver, and now beginning to get into base jumping. As you know and could probably guess, drinking is a common thing within these circles. I'm so tired of treating the people I love this way. But it's like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. I become scared of myself and the person I turn into when drinking. Any advice on how to stop drinking and mend some of my relationships would be greatly appreciated. Before we get into this, as an LEO, I'm assuming you have repeat customers when it comes to alcohol or substance abuse.
Absolutely.
How many of those people would you say are happy with their station in life?
None.
They're miserable,
Yeah, none
right?
of
But
them.
they cannot change their situation?
Correct.
Okay. What would you recommend? It sounds like this person is heading in that direction very rapidly.
Yeah. And I can relate to the circle he's in.
Yeah.
And, the community that you're around. And a lot of times when you get together, alcohol's there,
But participation in it is a choice.
100%.
That stuck out
Yep.
to me too. It's a common thing in those circles, but participation is voluntary. It's really easy to say, well, everybody else was doing it.
Yeah.
What if, man, I almost went down a gay porn rabbit hole real quickly on that. What if they were all jumping off of a bridge without a parachute, right? Does that mean you have to follow into that path? No, you absolutely do not.
Right.
So for me, and to the person writing this, I understand what you're saying. I hope you realize that's a very common excuse
For
that
sure.
people will say when they don't want to address their own behavior.
Yeah. I think the first thing to recognize is that it's become a habit and a pattern that is going to take some time to break. It's going to take one step on
11
the first
years
day.
of this habit.
Yeah, for sure. It's not healthy. And he's aware of it. Obviously, he's identifying the problem. But it's going to be a slow burn. He needs to he already recognized the problem.
Yeah.
So now to fix the problem is definitely change his social circle. That's a huge thing. He has to have the will to stop drinking. So maybe it's getting help with AA.
Like professional, like inpatient care.
Yeah, depending on how addictive it is for him.
Yeah.
If it's a choice, just like a bad habit and he might not know. Do I go like 5 days and not having a drink? Is it going to affect physically affect me?
I bet you they would feel it pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
When you drop guys and gals that have substance abuse, whether it's a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, I'm assuming they spend some time in the jail.
Yes, if there's a crime.
Okay.
And
how quickly do they start feeling the effects of not having those substances?
Quickly. So that's when I was working in my narcotics time.
Yep.
That was the biggest motivator for people to give up info on their friends, talking meth or heroin.
Yeah.
Was they knew we had them, and they did not want to go spend
Force
a night.
DT.
Yep. So they would tell their deepest secrets, which shows you how addictive it is.
Yeah.
And talking about alcohol, I know that DTing is real and that people die from DTs. So on this particular question, whether he's an alcoholic or just a habitual drinker every day, he needs to recognize it and figure out a process that's going to be consistent for him to stop it, whether that's surrounding himself with people that will hold him accountable or getting some professional help or going through a program. I don't know much about AA, but I know that that's what their function is. And I don't know on recidivism and like how many people drop out and reuse and all that. But that's the first step, in my opinion. The very first step is to sit down and write out a plan. Okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I like this person. She's going to be supportive. It sounds like she's supportive of it. It would be tough if she's continuing to drink or if she drinks and they're out in that same social circle and he's trying to hold the line. So they might have to have a conversation as a couple. Like, hey, if we're at dinner, no drinks.
Yeah.
Nothing around the house.
At least to start with.
Yep.
If you don't change the environments that you're going to be in and you expect your behavior to change, that's going to be a tough one. Rob Wolf, I think I heard him talking one day. It was about the food that you have in your house.
Yep.
And I'm this way too. If there's a bag of chips on the goddamn table, I could have at the beginning of the day this mental willpower, like I'm not gonna have any of those chips. I've been on this amazing diet for the last 17 minutes. Like today is the day. But they're there.
Yeah.
And in the back of your mind, they're there.
Yep.
So Rob's advice was get it out of the house. Don't even have it in the house because it'll lead you to repressing it. Oh my God, binge on it.
Yeah.
Alcohol is the same way. I think you have to change the environment that you are in. I feel fortunate. Like I can shut drinking off and I can have a great time with it. And neither of them bother me, but I feel fortunate that it doesn't. That particular substance for me has never been in a place where it's had hooks in me. The people who I have had in my work circles that it has had their hooks in them, they can't be where it is.
Right.
They don't have that control. But I will say this, full-time firefighter, awesome, full-time, ex-military. You might be surprised in all of these social circles, even though drinking is a common thing, if you were just honest with the people that you're hanging out with, like, hey, I don't think I'm in control of this anymore. I've had people say that to me in the SEAL community. Guess what I didn't do? Like, go buy him a shot of tequila. I'm like, dude, like, let's get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
We're all at a bar. You're telling me you have a problem with alcohol, and you're sitting here watching people order drinks. Like, let's go get some food.
Totally.
So you might actually find out that the people in these environments will be more receptive to you not wanting to drink than you may realize, because you might not be the only person dealing with this.
Oh, 100%.
But this 11 years of this behavior, holy shit,
That's
man.
a long pattern.
But
he can be in 11 years looking back and maybe just casually with the boys once in a while or none at all, but could have such a healthy relationship with this girl, have, advanced in whatever physical activities he's doing, just have he's got 11 more years to form a new pattern and habits.
Yeah.
Doing
the same thing and expecting a different outcome, though, is literally the textbook definition of insanity.
Yeah.
So I'd say change as much of your environment as possible, and then I would seek a higher level of help. I think 11 years, again, not an expert in substance abuse at all, but I feel like 11 years in anything is going to be a really hard amount of time to course correct on your own. You might need to rewire your brain. Again, that you need to talk
Totally.
to.
Totally.
Like the reward, how you talk about yourself, all of those things. And maybe, if you love this woman that you're with and she's as amazing as you say, I'd be completely open and honest with her about where you are.
Yeah.
This is where I feel like I am. I don't feel like I'm in control. I want to take the steps necessary. And again, I think a partner should be somebody who's there to help support you. Obviously don't take that too far and then, either manipulate her or take advantage of her, because then she is going to be out the door kicking rocks.
Yeah.
So balance that. So the repeat customers that you see at your job, have you seen some of them from early on in their career, in air quotes, into where they are now?
Oh, absolutely.
Where was the tipping point where it became irrecoverable? Have you been able to identify that?
No, I can't, because we're just touching on the very tip of the iceberg.
You're not seeing them on their best behavior.
Yeah, and also we're not following up. I mean, to be honest, it's very superficial contact. It's they commit a crime, we make a contact, we're like, oh, what's up, Andy? We bring them to jail, and then I drop them off and dust my hands and go on to the next one. And so then I see
2 days later.
Yep, 2 days later, a week later, same thing. And then eventually it becomes next year, 3 years later, and we're like, oh man, we've been dealing with this cat forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So could be just bad on me, but I think it's just a justice system, or not just the justice system, but the system. It's somebody else. Like we drop them off at jail. Those jailers, detention probably sees a whole lot more of the DTs and also where they're headed next after conviction or not, whether they're going to a treatment facility or how that works. Because they're kind of in the middle, they're receiving and then.
That's rough. That's going to be really hard to see the same people over and over again for the same stuff.
It's kind of motivating for me,
Really?
as far as keeping the line straight.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, okay, that's what it looks like to let your life slip. This is some of these dudes that I surround myself with. It's like, to be great, I want to follow that path. So for me personally, that's how I approach it.
Yeah.
It's good to see, just like the death and destruction that I see. Somebody asked me last night about a dude I knew that just committed suicide, and they're like, man, it must be tough to see that death every second, because we see a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for suicide, for me, it's not as much, because it's a choice, whether it was or wasn't, but I just compartmentalize it in my own mind differently than, the 18 and 22-year-old girls down in Missoula that were heading home, and a drunk driver crossed the center line and killed them both, and he lived. That to me is very touch point on life is precious.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So for me, when I see these people, I want to give them help. I want to give them advice. And if they're in my car, I mean, a lot of times when I'm dealing with them, they are so blasted that it's not the time to be speaking into their lives. But I have before, and I've caught them in a spot where they're just ramping up,
Maybe more receptive to what you might have to offer.
Yeah, and give them some advice and give, like, in not a condescending way, because that's the thing. You don't want to show up and be like, hey, I'm the authority, and you're breaking the law, dude, and you should not do this. You're going to kill yourself.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm glad I don't encounter people at the frequency that you do in those situations. I wouldn't do as well with it as I think you do. All right, last question for today. These are always shorter episodes. I enjoy it. Victim of domestic violence as a man. And I thought this one was appropriate because you have probably been to a DV or two. Dear Andy, I'm a very long-time listener. For a little background on me, I'm a 26-year-old male from Indianapolis. I'm a former infantryman in the Army, 6'2", 200 pounds. Last night, my girlfriend and I, who I live with, got in a very heated argument which led to her putting her hands on me and causing some significant damage to my skin. She is 5'2", 100 pounds, so it didn't actually hurt me, but she was screaming at the top of her lungs, and my neighbors called the police. When the police arrived, they let me know of certain injuries I wasn't aware of, including a cut along my Adam's apple and a large scratch leading from the top of my forehead to the bottom of my chin. I told the police I didn't want her to go to jail, but just to simply leave for the night until she was no longer intoxicated. As we spoke for the last question, intoxicated.
Yeah.
Again, the effects of alcohol, and it can be a fuck show. They said with physical injuries being inflicted, she had to be taken in. But whether I press charges later during the investigation is on me. But this isn't the first time this has happened to me or anyone else she's been with. My question is, would it be best to actually press charges or let it all go and cut ties completely? I do really love her, but I know I can be a very physical guy when it comes to someone putting their hands on me, and I don't want to be that guy that hits his girlfriend for any reason. Sorry for the lengthy message. Any thoughts would be appreciated. So is what he described correct? If you guys get a call, so neighbors are calling in,
Yep.
How does this play out in your world? You're on the receiving end of this. So I'm assuming they called 911.
Yeah.
911's like, beep, 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 beep.
Yeah. So I show up.
Yep.
So you look
What
at
information are you preloaded with?
so whatever you can get from the call taker.
Okay.
So it's a neighbor. They're probably reporting that windows are open, summertime.
Bloody murder.
Yep. Hear screams. This is what's being reported, which isn't always true. So you take it kind of 50-50.
Yep.
Or you just you process the info. Also, if you have a minute before your response, like if it's a long response time, like a 5-minute call or out here, it could be 20 minutes.
Yep.
So you can get a lot of pre-info on the people, like who lives there. If the neighbor, the tenant doesn't know, hey, run outside and give me the plate, the plate numbers off the cars. We're gonna run them, find out who we're dealing with, if they're frequent flyers or not. But either way, we can know like CCW, like concealed weapons permit, all that stuff.
So you're definitely front loading as much info
As
into
much
that
as you,
situation.
and we assume everybody has a gun. There's weapons in every home, whether it's a knife or just a kitchen fork or a heavy plant pot. There's always weapons.
Yep.
So you don't like disregard weapons if they say no known weapons. But anyway, the biggest thing is you show up, and let's just say there's a table tipped over, the phone's ripped out of the wall, or the cell phone's screen shattered, and what you're doing is like taking in a picture, and you're also who's approaching you first, where's the threats. In this situation, I mean, she sounds crazy.
Yep.
So which I've seen
behavior
a
is certainly
lot.
crazy.
Oh yeah, and it sounds like she's had a lot of prior craziness. So if he's calm and I can see this bloody mark on him or whatever, I'm probably going, and I'm by myself, I'm going to separate the two first and foremost. And if she's the crazy one yelling and screaming like, why are you here? I'm going to either bring her outside, but I don't want to leave him alone, with weapons, potentially weapons in the house. So until my backup gets there, I'm probably going to talk to her with her back towards him. He's probably going to be in earshot, so I don't want to ask too many provoking questions like, hey, what happened tonight? And as she starts talking, he's going to interject. But I always want to handle the like crazy one first, whether it's the dude or the chick. And then as my dudes get there, we can eventually separate them. I can get down nitty gritty. What happened? And sometimes as you walk in, you can say, oh, she's going to jail. Like this, like dude's standing there. He's got, she's got skin piled up in her nails or whatever. I'm being kind of.
The threshold for domestic violence has nothing to do with male or female.
Correct.
Correct.
Although so many people think it does.
I mean, if you look at this description, right, 6'2", 200, 5'2", so a foot taller,
So
100 pound. We're talking about a man towering over a smaller woman.
In Montana, there's the way that the law reads it's called partner family member assault in Montana. So same thing, domestic violence. There's intimidation is also in there. So if this guy yelled at her and she was in fear. So when the neighbor called, let's flip the roles. The neighbor calls, I get there, they heard a male voice screaming and yelling, females crying. He's like, hey man, get out of here. And I talked to her and I'm like, were you scared? And she says, yes. That fits the crime right there. Without hands.
So it is a crime.
Yep. Without hands.
Even though she's the one who did the physical damage.
Well, no, I'm just saying it in the reverse roles.
Got you.
And it also works in the same way if she's the one threatening him and we say, hey dude, were you in fear for your life or were you afraid? And he says, yeah, I was afraid she was going to scratch and bite me because she did that last time. That would be technically the violation of the law. And
do you have to do something at that point as a responding LEO?
Anywhere in the U.S. now, it's industry standard that it's a mandatory arrest.
Okay.
Yep. So,
but the pressing charges, does that mean that later on?
Correct.
So she did get arrested. I'm assuming there's a fine of some kind associated with that, but he could back away from escalating it. Is that what he's saying?
100%. So now what we're going to do, she's going to jail, let's say. The next officer's there. He's taking the report. Like, hey, dude, can you write a statement out? If he's like, I'm too shaken up, I can't sit down and write it right now. What we do is follow up the next day. Hey, can you fill this out for me? We'll be here tomorrow. We give him some forms. And if we get there tomorrow and he's like, dude, I'm not going to write any of this down. If it happened and we were proximal and we have it like recorded and we can be the witness, then he doesn't need to be there. We're going to testify and it'll be prosecuted and she'll be convicted, generally. There's all kinds of things that can go into that. However, if it's his word against hers or her word against him and we don't have a victim that's willing to cooperate, chances are it's going to get dismissed. The exception would be if, and I've had them, like this female that I had recently, she had a shoe print on her face, did not want to cooperate, but neighbors called. He went to jail. We found him down the road actually driving. She, like the Stockholm syndrome, she has been part of this family's going on. He's the sole breadwinner type thing. This is like your typical, like if you're going to paint it for a movie, domestic thing. But she's like, I don't want to press charges because he's like, when he gets out, he's going to assault me more and you're not going to hear it. And so I can testify on that. Like, hey, listen, he's got this shoe tread matches her face. She had to go to the hospital. It was that bad. So I can, with my investigation, get a prosecution out of that, get a conviction.
How often when you guys report for a domestic violence, do you encounter people who don't want it to escalate?
You mean they don't want to pursue charges?
Yeah.
Often.
How many times do you end up going there repetitively?
Often.
That was going to be my question, or leading me into my answer of, if you don't want to be that guy, and patterns, like, so that's what I assumed. She has a history of this pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be that guy. Why do you really love somebody who would be willing to do this to you? Is my question.
And did you say they're in their mid-20s?
26.
Yeah. I mean, she's old enough to have made a lot of life choices to get her to this point.
Yeah. I don't know why anybody would tolerate, again, a partner should not be somebody that tears you down physically, emotionally, mentally, any of those things. I don't know why you would tolerate. And the alcohol thing, like, I get it. She was intoxicated. Do people's behavior, does it get off the rails a little bit? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's also known as an excuse because she can control getting that intoxicated. But that level of violence, like, love her, why? I mean, at the end of the day, that's an expression of just pure rage towards another person. And I mean, he doesn't want to be that guy. If he fights back, where do they land in that? What if they're both going at each other? Oh,
there's mutual combatants, like we call it that. So mutual partners, so we can arrest them both. Okay. If we find marks on her and marks on him, it's mutual. And unless there's kids in the house, because that complicates everything. Anytime we go for a domestic and there's kids at home, CPS gets the copy of the report. So it's tracked. It could be a one-time thing, and I don't know if CPS would even, because I don't really know that side of the house. I don't know if they go and follow up with it or if they just keep, a little tally going on, like, oh, cops are going there a lot.
Yeah.
There's probably some problems. Okay, so let's show up to this one. He's definitely going to be in court, looked at as the predominant aggressor. He's bigger. He can disengage.
Oh, shit, if they're both standing not next to each other in court, but that's a hell of a juxtaposition to look at.
And often when I go to these, there's always, not always, oftentimes.
High percentage?
Yes. And I actually have a really good story for a non-alcohol domestic here in a minute. But when you go and they're impaired, and the guy says to me, you're only going to take her side of the story because she's, it's not that way at all. We're taking in the whole picture. And it's pretty clear when somebody, because she's going to give me her story, he's going to give me his story, and there's usually a little bit in between of what actually happened because people don't want to go to the principal's office and talk, So you have to take it in, and it's not illegal to lie. It is, but it's not. When we're investigating, you could technically get all weird on that, but I expect it. I expect you're not going to be 100% truthful when I show up. So I'm taking what you're telling me and looking around. Like, he's like, hey, she grabbed my phone because I was trying to call my brother down the street to come get me. And then she smashed it. And I look at the phone over there. It's still on the floor, smashed screen. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So things are tracking. You know what I mean? I'm kind of adding things up. And she's like, I didn't take the phone. You know, he smashed his own phone. Yeah, probably not. You know what I mean?
These things are expensive.
It happens,
Yeah.
but it's probably unlikely. So you just are doing the whole investigation and trying to figure out. I mean, it's a big deal to put somebody in custody.
Yeah.
It's also a big deal to have a habitual problem at home where somebody's living in fear, even a big dude like this.
So I'm saying I think you have to break the chain super early on. I mean, it kind of ties
100%.
into the alcohol one. Like, dude, you've got to change your environment, because if you're doing exactly the same thing in the same environment
Yep.
and thinking that the result is going to be different, I mean,
I'll answer the question. His question was, should I not pursue charges and separate, or should I pursue charges? He's got some scratches. It's over now. If they're living together or whatever, that's, you know, a lot to do to separate, which I'm just saying,
yeah.
I agree with that. If he doesn't pursue charges, it's really easy to like wash that problem away and say, it won't happen again. We had that talk, and to continue on. If you pursue charges, probably that relationship's not going to pursue. So that's an easy way to separate it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not all about charging. So if he decides he doesn't want to cooperate with the investigation and not show up to court, she will have it dismissed. But man,
But that doesn't mean he has to stay.
Exactly. So if you're going to hold fast to that, you can say, I don't have to watch you drown, but I'm not going to be there to throw you the
You're not
rope.
going to use me as a lifeboat.
Exactly.
You're not going to pull me underwater to stand on my shoulder so you can get a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a rough one, man.
So I probably would not pursue charges, but I would definitely move my ass out.
Especially this early in life.
Yeah.
I try to remind people that I don't know mathematically, but I like to say 1/2 of the Earth's population is women.
Yeah.
And some of them won't come at you like a fucking spider monkey when they've had a few cocktails.
100%.
Look for one of those. And maybe your life will be better.
Yeah. So alcohol, man. Most of our domestics are alcohol related, right?
I imagine most of the things that you guys touch, guys and gals touch, have some hint of a little whiff of booze on the breath.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Even the hold my beer accidents, literally.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
they're entertaining for us in search and rescue, especially. Couple years ago. So the ones that stick out are the non-alcohol related. You know.
Yeah, that's a different level.
When you show up and funny story. A couple years ago, I'm west of Kalispell, and this domestic comes out, and I'm the closest dude. I was out at my house when we lived out west there. So I just gotten home for dinner. We have we can go off shift at our house to eat chow for 20 minutes. So I'm there and I hear the call come out, but I'm still responding. It's close by, but it's 15 minutes from town. So I've got a long response between backup and myself. So as I'm responding, 2 minutes out, I'm throwing my vest back on. I'm running out the door. I got 2 minutes to get there. I'm getting info. Hey, this dude's got guns. He's known, kind of violent offender. So I roll up, and the story is, later I found out they had a party that evening. He doesn't drink. Everybody left, and he's like, hey, we're going to get after it, him and his lady. And she was like, no, we're not. And then it went on. And a neighbor called it in, and this is out in the kind of in the boonies. So I roll up there. It's quick. I'm a quick response, so it's still going on. So I park way down the
you roll
street.
up into the middle of the shit show.
Yeah, so I'm down the street, park out, blackout, walk up on foot, getting all the info I can. And I hear help, help, screams, the open window. So I run down the driveway. I'm gonna intervene. I'm not gonna wait for help. My dudes are 10 minutes out. So I roll up to the door. She sees me in the door light. I open the door. It's unlocked. She comes running out, and the dude comes to the door and he's buck naked. And I'm like, hey, buddy. And he goes to shut the door, and I'm like, I can see. So she's on the phone. She now gets the phones, calling 911, even though I'm there. She runs out to the trucks. So I'm not really concerned with her. Now I got this guy. He's going to shut the door. I mean, we got a separation, so we're good. If nobody else is in the house, we can deal with this later. But hey, I'm here in the doorway. So I put my foot down. I'm like, hey, dude, I just need to talk to you. And he's like, get the fuck out of my house. I'm like, well, it's not going to quite work that way. So this goes south, and dudes are, dispatch is giving me info. I can hear them, but I can't get out. I'm down in this hole in the mountains. So he ends up running down the hallway. So his back's to me. He's buck naked, and he's going towards his bedroom. So I follow him in. I'm like, and later we found a shotgun right around the door. Not that he would have grabbed it or anything, but so I end up giving the guy commands, but I tase him, and he canoes into the floor. It was a perfect contact, buck naked, So anyway, he's like, hey, man, I was just trying to get my clothes. Well, the lady outside thought I shot him. She's calling dispatch saying, hey, the cop's crazy. He just shot my boyfriend.
People don't realize the tasers make a popping noise too.
Yeah, so the responding dudes are like, oh, Nelson just got in a shooting, not knowing the context. Dispatch is like 742 status, and I'm like bonk, bonk, bonk. I can't get out, so I'm giving the guy commands.
Which is probably a bad.
Yeah.
So you're probably the people responding think something horrible has happened.
Yeah, she's on the phone with dispatch saying I shot the guy, and that I'm crazy.
Not responding,
and I'm not responding, and the dude now is 100% cooperative. Like, dude, you didn't have to do that. And now we get us, but he was totally no alcohol on board.
Yeah,
he was crazy. Anyway, good one.
You guys don't get paid enough to deal with the public nudity, even though that was more of a private nudity.
Yeah, that was at his house. I mean, he can be naked.
Not when you answer the door, though.
Yeah, I don't answer the door that way. Yeah,
well, man. Shit. Cool, man. That's the 4 questions for the week. Closing thoughts by Nelson Grant.
Man, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm an idiot, so.
No, I do too. I know I'm an idiot, so it's no big deal. Thanks, man.
The west bank of the river.
That's A firm, west bank, and give me Still give it to me in the grove.
Okay, one's in from the north. I've got the west bank of the river. Two's going to give it to you in the grove.
Roger, give me that gun run. Right along that bag, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to tune in, whether you're listening on an audio-only platform or you're watching on YouTube. I appreciate that you take the time every week to tune in. People ask me a lot, what can they do to help me spread the word? And the answer is actually embedded in the question. The biggest thing you guys can do to help me, if you enjoy the podcast and you think it would be helpful to others, is subscribe and share it with other people. And if you have the time, go on to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and a review. If you think the podcast sucks, tell me it sucks and leave a 0-star review or the lowest stars possible. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion, you can go to clearedhotpodcast.com. And there is a contact me button right there, which will land in my inbox. And the last thing, if people are interested in helping out, what you can do is fly the old flag. And by that, I don't mean an actual flag, because I don't have any of those. I'm talking about t-shirts or sweatshirts or hats, whatever it may be. Again, clearedhotpodcast.com. Click on the shop tab, and hopefully something in there looks like it would be an item you would like to wear around town. And then you can tell people what it is when they ask you. But that is it. The biggest thing I can say is thank you. I truly appreciate it. And until next time, see you.